Hi everyone, and good evening here from Finland, where it is just midnight. And we are working on day 2 of the pre-Gemini full moon webinars. We'll have 3 of these with 3 different keynotes. Last night's keynote was hierarchical love. Today we focus on the theme of resurrection. Tomorrow night here at the same time it will be the theme of contact. And then finally on Friday night here, or really 9 o'clock Universal Time, we will have our full pre-Gemini full moon webinar. It's nice to see you here. I know it's been relatively short notice, but we seem to have about 35 of us here tonight, and I'm glad that we are working together to prepare this Gemini full moon with World Invocation Day as part of it, as we know. That's on the 24th of May, and so, as I said last night, if it's possible for you and for all of us to regularly sound the Great Invocation on that day, maybe every hour perhaps, or at least internally do so, it is our best instrument for preparing the way for the reappearance of the Christ. This is another day of renunciation and detachment. The second day of preparation has the theme of aspiration, so it connects with the astral body as it aspires to soul awareness and to Buddhic pervasion. And our specific keynote is resurrection. Gemini is a very interesting sign in this respect. It does, in one way, connect with the 4th initiation as well as with others. This initiation in which the causal body is destroyed and the immersed monad that we call the human soul rises out of the lower 3 worlds and focuses on the Buddhic level, the intuitive level. And that we sometimes call the resurrection following the crucifixion. When we study the story of Jesus, his resurrection really preceded his 5th initiation, which he took in his next incarnation as Apollonius of Tyana. He was not born as Apollonius of Tyana, but apparently Apollonius was his disciple and gave his vehicle over to the initiate Jesus. So is the resurrection to be connected with the 4th initiation and following, with the crucifixion and following? Well, according to Master DK, it is the initiation of the 7th degree and relates to the logoic plane, the first plane of our cosmic physical plane. The Christ, in a way, and the Buddha as well, both of them are now in process of taking the resurrection initiation, which seems to span over some thousands of years. The Christ began this resurrection initiation back in his overshadowing incarnation in the Palestine of the period, and it will probably take some 4,000 years roughly before it is completed. Such is the nature of these later resurrections. The resurrection connects with solar life and with the high point of spiritual love. It is really a kind of transfiguration, a transfiguration in relation to the solar systemic, well, actually to the Syrian system of initiations. The Syrian initiations begin with mastership. And so 3 initiations from that point is a kind of transfiguration on the Syrian line. And the great power of the Solar Logos is channeled into the logoic plane and completely inspires with solar logoic power this type of initiate. He becomes a solar factor, even a Syrian factor. The Christ is an initiate of a certain degree in the Syrian regime of initiations. And in a way, in terms of the solar initiations, which begin at our normal transfiguration, resurrection represents a kind of 5th degree or mastership in relation to our solar initiations. So we're dealing with a marvelous theme here. The high point of love is reached in Gemini, as I said, for the initiate like the Christ who is undergoing this type of initiation. It's reached in Gemini. And the fusing and relating power of Gemini to bring together the many pairs of opposites that we have is clear in this regard. When we talk about the pairs of opposites for ourselves as human beings, we're normally talking about soul and personality, but we can also talk about triad, the triad and the soul-infused personality, or the monad and the triadally infused personality. There are many pairs of opposites to be brought together, and Gemini functions even on the constellational level, bringing together all the constellations of the zodiac, which are, in a way, aspects of the heart and the head center of this great supercosmic being. It's the most important sign on the mutable cross, the most authoritative, and it's called the head of the cosmic Christ. So if we begin to feel this power of love very strongly entering at this time, it is no wonder. Today has been the opportunity for the theme of love and resurrection, whatever this can mean. Of course, it won't mean the 7th initiation, but what it will mean in terms of the soul of humanity, that we will pursue in our work tonight or this day. So let us then let us begin. And our work is to feel ourselves not as the personality, not as the outer human being, not as the emotional vehicle or the lower mind, but something other. A true unit of consciousness is what we are, even though immersed in the personality fields. We are a point of being which exhibits consciousness. Let us find ourselves as that point of being, and realize that we are all in a way sharing the same consciousness. One consciousness working through a number of different apertures. We are united in consciousness. And we are certainly the same being. And so we find ourselves, as it were, abstracted onto the level of the soul. And we are surrounded by a field of love and light and spiritual power. This is our truer home, but not our final home by any means. It's as if we are all on the higher mental plane together, at least in imagination. And here we merge as a group soul, touching each other in soul, and somehow, wherever we may be geographically, realizing our identicality in spirit. We are a unit in spirit soul, reaching out to the members of the new group of world servers in soul, reaching out to all the men and women of goodwill, wherever they may be in soul, as if they were right here, right now. And reaching out to all human beings in soul, in the one soul of humanity. Imagine that. All human beings, whether in the body or out of the body, all human beings on all these levels, as one being, one identicality. In harmony and union. And the mantra rings out, naught is but me. Naught is but me. This is the soul of humanity, and more than that, the one identity which pervades the planet and beyond. And we are all a part of that. In fact, if we could realize it, we are that. And the fusing energies of Gemini will help us realize that. The love which draws all things together. Very powerfully related to Jupiter, not really one of its rulers, but a great second-rate planet, tremendously powerful. In Gemini, when the higher aspect of Gemini is being experienced, the union. Feel the union in the energy of hierarchical love. We are focused together on the mental plane. We are the soul, but we also are focused in the neighborhood of the mental unit, the group mental unit, strengthened to build the Antakarana. Not just the link with the loving, lighted soul, but the link with the impersonal spiritual triad. In a sense, the mind of God, the love wisdom of God, the spiritual will of God, the planetary logos. An empowered mental unit strengthened by the soul will, all 7 rays of the soul, the will to initiate, the will to unify, the will to evolve, the will to harmonize, the will to act, the will to cause, the will to express. We focus in this group mental unit at a point of tension and use our imagination to come en rapport with that which in a way sidesteps what we call the soul, bypasses, building the colored bridge, each one of us a dual colored bridge of our soul ray and our personality ray, or if we don't know that, we just use the indigo color, but red for the first ray, second ray indigo, third ray green, fourth ray yellow, fifth ray orange, sixth ray silvery rose, seventh ray violet. Imagine that this bridge is upward extending from your own permanent atom, an aspect of the group permanent atom. See the colors, feel the colors. And the bridge extends imaginatively to touch the monastic permanent atom and the abstract mental field, the Buddhic permanent atom and the field of intuition, the atmic permanent atom and the field of spiritual will. The antakarana arises. It is really the path of resurrection, this antakarana, eventually it will be. And it reaches then imaginatively into the blue-white diamond of monadic presence, where we can discover more intensely the pure being that we are, feel the power of the bridge. And all of us merge our bridges together in all these 7 colors, cone-like, rising into monadic rapport eventually, but at least touching these worlds of wisdom and will and love and mind beyond the individual correspondences of the same. This beautiful cone-like rainbow bridge of all the colors, the group Antakarana, reaching into these higher worlds where the masters themselves can be found. And across this bridge we project a beam of radiant white light covering, passing through imaginatively all the permanent atoms of the triad and anchoring in the center of pure being, the monadic center. This is the stage of projection, and as we project, we will think to ourselves, I see the greatest light, the second ray word of power. I see the greatest light. And we will outwardly sound the Om while inwardly affirming as we project the radiant beam upon the second ray note. The Om will sound. Oh. see the greatest light. And this is a vitalization of the Rainbow Bridge, rendering it a living link, uniting the highest in the human being with the personality represented by the mental unit. And we sustain this. Gemini so much rules the Antikarana, as does its planet Mercury. The link between the poles, in this case spirit and matter. Spirit represented by the monad triad, and matter by the personality built around the mental unit. A full connection. And into the worlds of the spiritual triad we enter. This is, at least imaginatively so, this is where the masters focus their consciousness all the time. And we seek then to come en rapport with them as they advise us to do, because a great meditation is ongoing, and they are meditating in these days as the Christ works with them before the actual Gemini full moon. And we offer our cooperation, our affirmation, our solidarity, our salutations. Salutations to the Lord Buddha, the Lord of Light, the Lord of Wisdom. Salutations to the Christ, the Lord Maitreya, the Master of all Masters, the teacher alike of angels and of men. Salutations to the triangle of masters with whom we most closely work, Masters M, KH, and DK. Salutations to the Master M, the head of all esoteric schools and organizations. Salutations to the Master KH, whose ashram is most responsible for preparing for the reappearance of his brother, the Lord Maitreya, the Christ. Salutations to the Master DK, who has given us the blue books and prepares aspirants for initiation. Salutations to your own master as you conceive him to be or know him to be. Salutations to the entire spiritual hierarchy of the planet, the Great White Brotherhood, the Grand Lodge on high. Sustaining this rapport with the Great Ones, we lift our imagination to the center where the will of God is known, and in all reverence and humility, identified as a group, we seek together to attune to the presence of the Presence, the Great Sanat Kumara, the emanation of the planetary Logos, standing at the center of Shambhala, the great teacher, the great sacrifice, the king of Shambhala. And a very long and silent Om as we seek to be imbued by his energy of purpose and will, divine purpose, divine will, a long, silent, inward Om. Our opportunity is great at this time. We are as if together a point of light, the entire group a point of light we are, and of love and of power, facing the indigo center of the solar sphere. The golden path leads into that sphere, and we are together, not as human beings per se, but as points of being, points of consciousness united in one point. And the path shortens, the golden path shortens. We feel it, we go with it, we enter into the indigo sphere imaginatively. Feel this. And here the presence of the consciousness of Master DK can support our further meditations and our reaching towards the planets and the stars. And as a group, we offer ourselves as an outpost to his consciousness. And now attune. We start to attune to the energies which are available. We will describe them more fully in a couple of nights, but now Mercury, the exoteric ruler, revealing and uniting the pairs of opposites, at least making their recognition possible. We recognize the soul recognizes the personality. Venus, the esoteric ruler, drawing the opposites together in the field of love wisdom. And the earth, the hierarchical ruler, becoming gradually a sacred planet under the inspiration of Gemini. The field of service. The sacred lighted sphere we must become. Our very own planet and its quality, and these we will keep in mind as we attune with the light of interplay, which is the Geminian light, the interplay of the opposites. Here we are in our solar system of love wisdom. Every one of us pervaded by the great indigo light, the indigo presence of our solar logos, the blue logos. Realizing the opportunity to express divine love is very strong under the Gemini influence. And thinking about this light of interplay in the constellation Gemini. The two brothers, Castor and Pollux, representing altogether actually 7 stars, 1 and 6. Pollux 1 and Castor 6 stars. Uniting these great opposites. Interplaying with all units of life in an exchange of light and love, harmonizing, drawing all together in a synthesis, the light of relationship, uniting spirit, form, matter, soul. We open to this energy of Gemini, in which we can say, I recognize my other self. And in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. Together we can put ourselves in the soul state and be the higher of the pairs of opposites, no longer the group personality, but the group soul. I individually recognize my other self, I am the soul, and recognize that which I have identified with before, and it wanes. But as the group too, I recognize my other self, the group personality, because I am the group soul. We ponder on this. I recognize my other self. And in the waning of that self, I grow and glow. We feel ourselves to be something higher, and the light of that instrument with which we identified ourselves begins to fade, begins to wane, and our light grows. We are together in the waxing light. We, and eventually all humanity, in the waxing light, as the personality of humanity is drawn into the soul and shines with soul light as a sub-ray of the soul, not shining with its own elemental light. We polarize within the higher of the pairs of opposites, which we recognize as our true self, and the I grows and glows. In this higher light. And this is the light we can give to all humanity at this time when right human relations are so important. Making the connections in the human race what they should be instead of what they are now. Reconstructing according to the divine plan, according to the theme of Shambhala, which is right human relations. These lines of living light all throughout humanity and the planet, and we are participating in this. And in this alignment we consider the two great brothers of the East and West, the Buddha and the Christ. The spiritual union of these two produces the illumination and love of humanity and the planet, the great teachers. Visualize them. Cooperating at these festivals, and especially the festival of Wesak and this festival of goodwill, the so-called Christ's festival, the Gemini festival. They stand for the constellation Gemini, at least we can interpret them that way. And so great is their interconnection, we've learned that the Christ preaches at the Gemini full moon, the last sermon of the Buddha before the assembled hierarchy, and then away before the hearts and minds of all human beings. So much did he respect the Buddha's revelation, and of course by now The Christ is using the vestures, the triadal vestures of the Buddha, which the Buddha left in a state of suspension for the use of the Christ later, according to the redemptive plan of Sanat Kumara. So the Buddha will support the Christ, as will the Spirit of Peace, the avatar of synthesis. We begin to feel something of that incredible loving power, loving lighted power. So last night we spoke of the freedom from the body's cravings, and here is yet another little section from the last sermon of the Buddha to help us prepare as we move towards the full moon of Gemini. And this the Christ will say along with the entire sermon, but we focus on this part at this time. While subject to sensations, let him continue so to regard the sensations that he, being strenuous, thoughtful, mindful, may, whilst in the world, overcome the grief which arises from the sensations. This is the call to the inner life and to the realization of the higher impacts rather than those of the outer world, which keep us as prisoners in the world of matter form, which belongs more to the previous solar system really than to our own. In the world this is done. The Buddha, the lion, with his first ray personality, his sixth ray mind, his second ray wisdom soul, his third ray monad, giving cosmic mental light. While subject to sensations, let him, the disciple, continue so to regard the sensations that he, being strenuous, thoughtful, and mindful, may, whilst in the world, overcome the grief which arises from the sensations. And thus identified with the higher pairs of opposites, we could do this. We could abstract ourselves and recognize the body's cravings, the sensations also for what they are, and be detached and free. And enter into that state of beingness which the Buddha called suchness, the livingness within and behind all of the contents of consciousness. And so in this regard, let us affirm in ourselves the fact that we can be strenuous, thoughtful, and mindful in the overcoming of the grief which arises from sensations, and let us resolve to do so. So the Buddha's presence is increasingly with us in relation to this festival. His light conveyed to the Christ, to whom we now turn our attention, and with the utmost heartfelt attentiveness of which we are capable, we perform an inner spiritual exercise, and we imagine that we hear the Christ sounding the great invocation in his own voice, and we allow for a period of silent absorption of this imagined sounding. On each of the 3 days of preparation prior to the full moon, the Christ is said to speak the great invocation alone. So let us attune in imagination on the great Lord, the Christ, and imagine his inner sounding of the great invocation. Words are here if we need them. And surely this must be the most powerful sounding of the ancient men for light and power on our planet. Obviously not in English, maybe in some priestly language, a living language. But we attune. And then our next step will be, having listened very carefully to the Christ as if sounding the great invocation alone, we imagine then the great Lord and the entire hierarchy intoning the second stanza of the great invocation together. So we imagine the assembled hierarchy. And together we listen imaginatively as they sound the second stanza. We contemplate the deep significance of these words. And with such a force of will behind this invocation, we know that its intent will manifest. We imagine the love of God pervading humanity and the planet. And we see the human race characterized by right human relations and our planet expressing the great second ray, its soul ray. And we stay within this, and within the general Geminian alignment as we move to contemplate the keynote of the day. The second keynote described by Master DK in the following way. The keynote of resurrection, emphasizing the new note of livingness, of the living Christ, and of that life more abundantly which wars, privation, and suffering have made possible by forcing a return to real values. So our contemplative mind focuses on the keynote of livingness, resurrection, with its note of livingness, the livingness of the living Christ, bringing from Shambhala the life more abundantly. We seek understanding of this, light upon this, using the Antakarana to shed the light upon the theme of resurrection, livingness, life more abundant. The Antakarana is our road of resurrection, leading us into ever more living spheres, until all relations are scintillatingly alive. And our consciousness, long buried in mistaken identity within the elemental worlds, will rise into its true sphere and be ever more free, until everything within our content of consciousness is alive, resurrected, restored to its high place in spirit. Resurrection in a way that we can understand it. Not the seventh degree, not yet, but something we can understand and encourage and experience. And so for a day then, this is our focus within the growing power of the Gemini full moon. Resurrection, livingness, life more abundant. We see this growing in ourselves and in all human beings, the spirit of resurrection. And how can we in our individual and group lives, and eventually all world servers and even all humanity eventually, express this new note of livingness? In this living miracle in which we are participating, but alive now in the cosmic ethers, the spheres of life, and no longer dead and suppressed within the dense physical vehicle, unredeemed, but living. Gemini bringing the higher ethers into the lower spheres so they too may live. And all turns thrillingly vibrant. A resurrected life. And let us for a day, and for more than a day, learn how to express this vibrant, thrilling livingness of resurrected life. We affirm then our solidarity with the Buddha, the Christ, and the assembled hierarchy, and we seek to identify with them and merge into their plan, merge into their purpose. so that really we have no other life intention. We can do that, and it will make all the difference. We'll carry this sense of merging forward day by day. And we bless the world, merged with them. We bless the world in silence, in our own way. All the pain and distress, purifying pain and releasing sorrow, purifying sorrow and releasing pain. It can be overcome, transcended, and the life more abundant from Shambhala under Jupiter, under Gemini, can flow into all who then can truly live. We will carry these energies forward now. Even when we go to sleep, we seek to stay in them. Continuity. And so, as if in union with the Christ, the hierarchy, and all the disciples of the world, and cognizant of the great Buddha, who still loves humanity so much, he remains with them when he need not have done so. We sound the second stanza of the great invocation together, sensing the manner in which hierarchical love leads to the livingness of life more abundantly and to the resurrection of the Spirit. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. Friends, the preparatory meditations continue in another 23 hours or so. The full moon occurs at 4:24 and 55 seconds a.m. GMT on the 25th. We have a little while before that happens. And I would just encourage us all to keep increasing the point of tension in the flow of these marvelous forces of reconstruction. The great second ray force is released at this time. And keep right human relations with all, right relations with all living beings on our planet. And ponder and attempt to live the theme of resurrection during the next 24 hours or so. And work towards World Invocation Day on the 24th, where even if we are busy doing other things, we reserve inner space to sound the great invocation. So I wish you all good night, good evening, good day, good morning, and trust we will all stay together now in our sense of communion, united with the Gemini and Mercurian energies and Venusian energies flowing between us on this earth, building towards the high point of the Christ Festival, the Gemini full moon. So, good night for now, and stay with it.